No, no, we don't need the intro this time. What, you guys actually like my intro? Okay, I'll stream it again for this particular top 100 when people stop bitching about Metal Claw on my top 15 starters. I honestly didn't know how to start off this part of the list. I was trying to write a script, then I just didn't know. So I played Team Fortress 2 for a little. Then I went back to scripting and thought of the wittiest way to start off this part. Bug flying. No! Oh, don't worry, it's one of the well thought out and statistically pretty good ones. So to put it simply, Yanmega is a giant green dragonfly, which I have to say those colors blend in very nicely. Being based off of an ogre donner, you would expect it to be very fast. Well, compared to all the other bug flyings, it does actually have the most speed of a base 95. Not as fast as a lot of Pokemon, but with speed like this, as well as a very good special attack with a variety of special moves, it can do a lot of damage. It's also another Pokemon where all the abilities benefit very well, whether you want setup with speed boosts, or you want a really nice lead with tinted lens, which is actually a favorable ability of mine. Yanmega is most likely based off of Maganera, which is an insect of prehistoric times. More prehistoric references. Where can you go wrong? But when you see me bring one of these on the field, you can expect it to be one of the first Pokemon I will ever let out. I've just found it very helpful to me regardless of what I use it for. And hey, it's pretty easy to get, so if you want a good bug flying type, you'll probably find it here. Before I get started on this segment, I'm putting a disclaimer. Don't get one of these for your house. I learned that the hard way. I was sent to an alternate dimension. There were cupcakes. Then I got an odd obsession over cupcakes. So Chandelure has one of those things. You know, basically what all ghost types share. Creepy ass Pokédex entries. I like creepy ass Pokédex entries. You guys really want a summarization of what it does? Being a fire ghost type, it doesn't burn your flesh like you think it would. No, these things hypnotize you, then burn your soul. Which you have to admit, wanting a ghost fire type for a while, this was definitely the way to do it, and it's certainly pretty well thought out considering its pre-evolutionary stages. Its stats aren't something to mess around with either. With decent speed as well as balanced defenses, and its primary stat of special attack with a base stat of 145 allows Chandelure to outspeed a number of Pokemon, while dealing an insane amount of damage. The move pool? With either giving it Energy Ball for those rock and water type Pokemon, as well as Psychic, which thanks to its Dream World ability, it won't give those fighting types a fighting chance. So before I come up with more bad jokes, Chandelure has an incredibly unique typing that didn't go to waste, and is a pretty powerful Pokemon that you shouldn't mess around with. Instead, get one. Just not as a house decoration. And we finally start talking about this set of legendaries again. Virizion, being the most graceful of the Musketeer trio, has the most special defense out of all of them. What's even more impressive is that Virizion takes the cup of being the grass type with the most special defense, with a base stat of 129, which is already pretty impressive. Now, as far as its capabilities, if you used one without being too used to grass types, then chances are you probably found the least amount of use out of Virizion. This is because I feel Virizion is the most versatile out of the bunch. What you want in particular as a moveset? Well, that's more determined by your team. But much like most grass type, using them is risky due to how you have to accommodate for their weaknesses. The typing I feel actually complements Virizion very well, where most of its weaknesses that come from a lot of types that use special attack, and that it has Calm Mind and resistances from primarily physical attacks. It does have a lot of counters, but it does have a lot of Pokemon that Virizion will give a lot of problems to. Play your cards right, and you're set. Now for concept and design. Why I think I'm more accustomed to Virizion's design is because it actually looks very similar to another Pokemon I just simply adore. It also looks a bit more like an antelope as compared to the other Pokemon within this group, which I am also rather fond of. Also, I feel I need to address this, but something about the design I didn't bring up with Cobalion. As you know, this trio is based off the Three Muskets, but take a quick look at particularly their chests. They all actually look like equines, with armor on them, Virizion's being a grassy coat to defend its front. That is just cool. So what are you looking at? Make the smart choice and switch to Virizion, the fastest 5G Pokemon. Why did I make that joke? So up next we have a Gen 3 favorite, and it's not too hard to understand why. Out of all the Gen 3 Pokemon that gave me a first impression of the roster, Aron's line was the one that highly stood out for me. And you have to admit, the design was just what? Good job, Game Freak! Anyway, being one of the only Pokemon that has the type of the two most defensive typing, you would expect Aggron to have defense as the highest stat. Well, great deduction skills. Hey, at least he stayed more than Pokemon Black and White too. The more wounds it has, the more it battles. Good job, Game Freak! Its two major weaknesses are fighting and ground, and plus, Surf will do it in an instant. But thankfully, thanks to Sturdy, it can take one of these moves and rock polish the next turn, making it even more threatening with its powerful physical moves. So other than it being cool, its origin is tough for me to make out. My best guess? It took off ideas from the Triceratops, and make it walk on two legs, and have the meat steel. But I raised one in Emerald. I regretted nothing. Get yourself an Aggron! I suck at advertising. So, some people say that two good things make a great thing. Well, that is highly illogical for various reasons. But it is the case here. Bam! Being a unique type that has yet to be replicated by anything that combines two of my close to favorite types, Bisharp did not disappoint. With high physical defense and a really high attack power, this is definitely something you gotta be careful with, due to not wanting to switch out on this guy. Oh, get this. If you attempt to intimidate it, it will increase its attack power, thanks to its ability that increases its attack by 2 stages if one of its stats are lowered. This combined with a good amount of physical attacks and its resistances to a lot of common attacks makes Bisharp not something you want to take lightly on the field. They actually developed an Uber set for its Sucker Punch mind games. Also, I think I'm probably the only one to find its fan description on Smoggin funny. Because I agree, it does look like a badass. So aside from all of that, its concept. Now this might lose a little interest in some people, but I feel I'm probably one of the only ones who realizes this. According to its Pokédex entry, it commands a group of Poniards to hunt down prey into immobility, then finishes off its prey. Now, I completely suck at chess, but that doesn't mean I can't understand the basic terminology. It's actually very standard for players to set up pawns in a way so they are all standing on the opposite colored square as your currently active bishop. This gives the bishop mobility across the board so it can easily set up captures. This is referred to good bishop and bad bishop. So basically, Bisharp, as the name implies, is actually based off the bishop piece of chess, seeing how the pawns immobilize the captures. Another thing, dark, sneaky, steel, defensive. And I thought Game Freak was thinking outside the box when they created the Ghost Fire type. I couldn't think of a witty way to start off this one, so I decided to use an internet meme. Oh, Gen 5, why must you have such cool designs? So Scolipede actually takes the winner as the largest bug type inside the current Pokemon roster. And surprisingly, its highest stat is speed, as odd as it may sound, and its offensive stats are definitely mediocre at best. But this makes up for it as a utility-based Pokemon to put spikes up on the other side, or having the move Sword Dance to make it a dangerous sweeper, with its amount of good physical attacks. Yeah, bug poison has been done before, but it has never been done like this. Scolipede is designed like a centipede that walks on all four legs, and its antennas serving a similar function to horns. Being a giant bug where its quick agility matches its size, these things are relentless while chasing down its prey with incredible speeds. These things are actually kind of scary when you think about it. But so far, I raised 2 in a row, and I didn't regret that decision. I am sorry for the underwhelming segment, but Scolipede quickly came to me as one of my favorite for bug types, and Game Freak, thank you for making a good bug poison type. Heh, I don't think I'll receive any objection for placing this guy here. With the introduction to Steel types, Skarmory definitely became a popular Gen 2 Pokemon, along with a number of other Pokemon who were introduced to these new types. And these things are so rare that before these things called internet guides existed, I actually thought this was a Gen 3 Pokemon, until the National Pokédex told me otherwise. What? Don't look! I was a kid! So in Pokemon Emerald, it was also rare to get one, but I got lucky. And before you get on me for having 2 Steel types on my team, well, I had a very helpful Pokemon and a rare catch. What do you think I'm going to do, store it in a box? Not on your life. Also, being quite possibly my first rare catch, this is what made my Hoenn team unique, which was worth something. Memories, where I was a pretty bad Pokemon trainer. Anyway, before the physical special split, this thing was very reliable for your main flying type Pokemon. However, thanks to 4th gen, its leveling up move pool just feels shallow, having to rely on TMs in order to make it helpful. However, it heavily benefited in competitive metagame now that I can carry a shed shell for those pesky Magnezones flying around everywhere. This, in combination with access to moves such as Roost, Spikes, Stealth Rocks, and even Whirlwind, along with the unique typing, makes Skarmory one of the best supporters for your team. Not to mention, much like most Steel types, this design just appeals to me. It looks like a condor with razor-sharp swords for wings. I also like how it looks like it has a helmet for a beak, but it overall does look simple and it's pretty well made. So Skarmory, mostly here because of the memories, and it still holds up to me to this very day. Alright, you know how I said earlier that others say 2 good things make a great thing? Well, let's take 2 meh things and make it a great thing. Bam! So being the only Pokemon that has this typing from 2 types that kind of go in the category just happen to fall into my least favorite, though I still like them, I didn't expect much out of this. Oh boy was I wrong. Well, because of this typing and its now Thick Fat ability, it takes normal damage from Stealth Rocks, has resistance to Ice, and takes normal damage from Fire. Underwhelming, but it makes up for it by being able to keep its Ice typing with powerful stab Ice Shards with a base attack power of 130. The main reason I'm bringing this up is that my least favorite metagame is actually OU. Mamoswine doesn't go with the metagame. It literally tears a new loophole into this tier. All those cheap-ass setup sweepers will bow down to the might that is Mamoswine. And I love it. Design-wise also appeals to me. Being based off of a woolly mammoth, this thing is as intimidating as it looks. One of the main features that we're not used to seeing on such a beast is the pig-like nose it borrows from its pre-evolutions. It's actually kind of cute. The tusks are also made out of ice. Pure, solid ice. And I haven't brought this up mainly because this is the last Pokemon with this idea. But the concept of evolving from ancient power is to take what's normal, everyday stuff you might see and turn it into an ancient prehistoric Pokemon. Which, due to how these things needed evolutions, this was a really good idea. So Mamoswine is a beast. Screw Dragonite, get yourself a Mamoswine. Unless the Dragonite is God modded. In which case you should use the Master Ball. This is definitely a legendary that got a much needed improvement with the 4th gen physical special split. Yeah, I get the overall verdict of Entei. Entei is easily the worst of the legendary beast trio, and Arcanine is pretty much superior in every way, having a much more diverse move pool, more options, and you're better off getting one of those, which is kind of sad considering Entei is outclassed by a non-legendary. But to be honest, as a Pokemon, I just prefer Entei more, and it gives me an excuse to hang around RU, so why not? I probably like it more because of its kick-ass design. Entei is part of the legendary beast trio, which is most likely based off the Lions of Fu. All you need to look at first is the shackles on its legs, and you can acknowledge that it looks like a badass. It also has a really clever design, where its back kind of looks like a mountain, and something that looks like a cape that gives the impression that it's smoke, making it look like a volcano. It also has a mask that looks like a standard issue military samurai helmet. That's so cool! And there is also the other thing. Entei's role within the 3rd movie. Tags. In Spell of the Unknown, Molly wished for her dad to come back to existence. And the Unknown brought her dad back in the form of an Entei, and created an entire fantasy world based off of Molly's emotions. Entei was there to give Molly whatever she wants, but when she realized the harm she was causing, she pulled Entei back. The Unknown went out of control due to these events, and the illusion of Entei had to stop this himself. As it struggled to beat the Unknown, it told Molly to believe in his power. Molly was eventually able to let go of her own fear and place power within her father to overcome what appeared to be an impossible task. Just believe, and you can make your fantasies a reality. End tags. What a nice story. Also, Entei is voiced by Dan Green. Yeah, I rest my case. Alright, I had to pick between 2 Pokemon to go on this list without sounding too generic for 2 segments. And it was between nostalgia and influence. So I came to the ultimate conclusion. Why not both? It's 101 Pokemon now, ending off this segment with a Fire Blast. Because, get it? Fire Blast? So let's start off with Cyndaquil. Being my first Johto starter, this guy was a blast. Forget it. Cyndaquil is cool, but Pokemon Gold was the time where I was starting to get into Pokemon a bit more. And I mentioned before, it's definitely a great pick, burning the ground of Bugsy's team, and smoke screening the oncoming rollouts, and getting that Mareep so you can show that Feraligatr who's boss. Oh yeah, I remember that. Great times. It should also be noted that Typhlosion is the fire starter with the most unique typing ever. Fire! Typhlosion just also looks really cool, and he also looks ready to fight. But really, Typhlosion is just too straightforward to give a lot of info. But it's very nostalgic and it holds up to this very day. Though it's a very simple Pokemon to understand, it's very effective to make something very likable. So moving on to the Torchic line. Now I should make this very clear before anything else. I don't find Blaziken overrated. I just find its fanbase very close to the most annoying of any following of any other Pokemon. But yes, by putting their favorite Pokemon on the bottom half of this top 100 out of, let me remind you, 649 current Pokemon, I've just opened myself to a lot of flame. But anyway, Blaziken. I can start off with its awesome design. I can start off with the fact that this is the only starter to be banned from every non-Uber tier. Or I can start off with what's important. Being my first starter from Hoenn, it taught me something. So in Pokemon, I used to just go with attackers, like, all the time. No need for strategy when you got fire types. But when I was playing through Hoenn, I got my ass kicked at the end. And I remember how much grinding I had to do in order to get the appropriate Pokemon for the certain gym leaders, and it was frickin' frustrating. But see, if I picked something like Mudkip, I probably would still have the mindset that my starter can do almost anything. Blaziken just taught me diversity is good. I don't know, Blaziken just has that odd significance to me and changed my entire outlook. But both of these starters were definitely a big deal. One got me into Pokemon more, one changed my entire thinking methods, and though I can't really have fun with either of these anymore due to how I'm not really the biggest fan of straightforward gameplay, they both impacted me as a Pokemon fan, as a child, and were enough to influence the bottom half of this list for me to like certain Pokemon even more. And that's enough for me to put them at number 51.